back to Vikram and the big fight now.
All right, it's time now for the first punch. Before I go to Sheila Dikshit and get her sense of what's happening, and I know she's stuck in a pretty awkward sort of a situation right now, let me start by giving the first punch to you, Sanjay. Why do you think that demolitions are actually necessary in this situation? And if demolitions are necessary, whom do you think is to blame for the situation that cities like Delhi find themselves in?
Okay, that's a complex question. Of course, demolitions are necessary because you don't follow the law. As simple as that. And that if you want the rule of law, you'll have to ensure that nobody exceeds what they're allowed to build. But why we need to get to a position where demolitions are required is a more complex question, and I think it really roots back all the way to why we have cities which are bursting at the seams with no provision for the kind of people we sort of bring into the city on a daily basis, why we are unable to enforce the laws and we are pretty good at making them, by the way, and fundamental laws, and why we are unable to actually meet the aspirations of the people. Well, I'm not sure whether it's fair enough it justifies things or that, because you're talking about a position and a principle. Now, what he's talking about is probably the reality of the situation, and I think one has to live with it. Now, that's one part of the problem. The other part is you really have to negotiate with why it is like this. It really is the failure of governance at the end of the day, and it is urban governance at its worst in our cities that really is the cause for all this.
Action has to be on the side of the MCD. You're shaking your head at that. If illegal constructions, I think that's pretty much what Mr. Khandelwal is saying. Illegal constructions have come up over decades. The authorities, you can call it the MCD, you can call it anyone, has looked the other way on the payment of bribes. Let's face it, that's the reality. Now suddenly overnight the bulldozers come in.
Before that, you have to really look at the traditional stance of government, for that matter. You know, the flip-flop, the double-speak. On the one hand, it's all very wrong and it's not right. On the other hand, people have to actually live and form. So, I mean, where do you stand? Take a stand. Let's know exactly where this government stands. The people want, everybody claps because we want demolitions. On the other hand, is the legislature which doesn't want demolitions. You are in contempt of court.
Yeah, Sheila-ji. Sanjay, is there any solution that you can think of to the issue of where do the traders go, where do the shops come up? Is there a solution or is there not?
I think it's a generic problem. It's not about traders only. It's also about industries. Where are people setting up industries? Why are they setting it up in areas which you would probably not actually allow them? The problem is this, that the governments down the years have never, ever accommodated the aspirations of all its citizens. And each one of them is important. It's not about traders versus RWA versus residents versus commercials. It has to be, you did not provide for them, you did not provide for them, and you did not provide for them. That is why. Because enterprise, now this, just a minute, I want to make this point. This enterprise is celebrated when it goes to America and shines. But this enterprise in your own locality, because you have no other option, is looked down on.
I'm going to take that last point. It is unfair to the people who want to live in the law. Now, what I'm going to come to you, Sanjay, it's one thing if somebody is putting up an illegal construction because he wants to make a quick buck. If it's a builder, somebody wants to set up a shop. If he's wanting to make a quick buck, it's one thing. But what about a situation when you are being hemmed in by some rather irrational laws? Everyone knows those laws are irrational. But you feel sometimes you don't have a choice but to go ahead and break that law. And once you're in for a penny or in for a pound, once you've started paying your MCD councillor, and it's true in Delhi, it's true in other cities also, once you get down that path, then you say, well, all right, if I'm paying for doing X, I might as well pay and do X, Y, Z.
You're right, but the fact of the matter is the laws are really not the genesis of the problem or the fundamentals of the problem. They are there, we can look at them, they can be fixed. But there is a simple
solution.
But
why? The laws don't change. And the present laws are sometimes in some areas so restrictive, the only person who benefits are the guys who are coming to ask for bribes.
Look, my point is simple. There are laws that are not enforced, and that is really fundamentally the problem. Now, as far as building is concerned, there is the bylaws very clearly say you can build so much plus 10% more. Now, I disagree with the 10% more because, either there are laws. If there are laws, they should be watertight. What do you mean by 10% more? Then can I build 11% more? Oh, I'm defaulting. But the fundamental point is you don't enforce them. Your traditional weakness is nothing is enforced.
Ajay, is the problem 50% more? Sanjay, it's basically about greed.
No, I don't agree with that. You just replace the word with aspirations, it becomes nice, right? The fact of the matter is there's a family of 4, okay? Over a period of 15 years, those kids grow up, right? Then they get married. What do? Do you have housing available for every economic level to be able to have them shift out? Is it like America, where we can all splinter out, leave our parents behind? Will they be looked after? Man, it's a difficult life in this city. The point of the matter is, you just don't have the economic choices that you need. There is not enough variation.
So what is the point you're making? You have to then relax the laws.
No, sir, I am saying you have to provide for people.
But how?
But you see,
You mean the government acquires land and builds more property?
whatever it does, that's what the job of the government is. Governance is the problem. It's not the laws.
Right, Sanjay?
Not at all. The fact of the matter is, there is no island in this country which is so pious where the laws are enforced, and that too 20 kilometers from Delhi. Come on, that's Haryana.
Well, you just have to go across and see this.
Sir, I live there.
And you have not seen
There's no need
demolitions?
to see, sir. There are no demolitions. I fight with my neighbors because everybody is extended 5 feet into the backyard when they're not supposed to. Let's get real, you know. I mean, let's have a real argument here.
All right, let's take the next comment.
So why should we go for destructive methods, and why can't we have some constructive methods for removing all these things?
How do you have I'm fascinated. How do you have a constructive method for knocking
So
down an illegal
constructive
construction?
method here means, so why to just demolish it? Why
But how
can't
do
we
you
impose some
constructively remove it?
penalties? Why can't we
How
impose?
do you constructively remove it?
No. You see, demolition means you have got to simply throw people out of these places.
Do you have a constructive solution?
No, I think I get the drift of what he's trying to say. What we are saying is, in fact, this is something that we worked on for the last 5 days, and I'm happy to announce to you that we have worked with the Traders Association to tell them not to oppose the demolition, but just rephrase the demand in a different way. So what we have said and agreed with them and some other RWA organizations is, let's give them the chance to voluntarily demolish their properties, give them time, but their condition is, make sure that you give the same kind of treatment to the MCD officials, which is, I think, fair.
Right. Keep it for future. In other words, authorize all present unauthorized construction, I think is what he's trying to say.
My interest is that this demolition drive should not remain a drive like the ones that we have seen before. We have to go down to the genesis of the problem, address the fundamentals of it, and that has to do with the political structure we have, that has to do with the urban regulator we have, and I think the urban regulator, the MCD, really needs to relook at it. We need to take its teeth away to a large extent, because that's what gives them the power to corrupt, the power to charge. If you put that in an independent body, which is probably directly under the lieutenant governor, you will have a body which will actually act like the eyes and ears of the administration. I think that's really fundamentally important. And above all, my colleagues have given me something which they say is the final solution to all problems in Delhi.
All right, you came. All right, fine. You came. I can see you came prepared with that. I don't think we have anybody in the MCD here to actually counter that, so we'll have to allow that to pass. But thank you all so much for joining us on The Big Fight. We will try and get the MCD in to respond to that as to why that particular status quo should be allowed to continue. Thanks so much for watching The Big Fight. Do join us again next week for a special look at the biggest fights of the year.